sort
That's fair enough. Fair enough. All right, guys. Today we are gonna focus on some work on the low back and then a little bit of work on the upper back. So we're gonna start off. If everyone grabs the lacrosse ball or
Um,
analog of,
oh, Rory, I
yes.
I don't have a lacrosse ball. Can I use a
What have you
foam?
got? Yeah, you could give it a shot. Yeah, you can do a sort of variant on this, I suppose. Yeah, that would work. Yeah,
Cool.
we'll make that happen. All right,
Cool.
what we're going to do is if we're thinking about on our back, if you basically sort of go to the left-hand side of your spine and then prod until you something a bit more squishy. Okay, basically as soon as you get above your pelvis. Okay, and that's where we're going to place the ball. Okay, so we're going to put the ball in just above our pelvis. Okay, so I'm going to use the sofa, but you don't have to use a sofa necessarily. I'm just going to put my legs up on there so that they're kind of resting. And then I'm going to go and find that squishy bit and pop the ball under there. Okay, so if everyone just kind of gets a position where they're able to do that. And then what we're going to think of doing is just sort of kind of grinding across the grain of the muscle. If you think of the muscle traveling up and down your spine, what you're going to do is you're going to go side to side across that, and we're going to use the leg that's on that same side to drop it out to the side a little bit as well. So once we've got the ball in there, we're just going to lie back and kind of relax there, and then from there drop the knee over to the side, and then you're just going to shift your hips left to right as you go across that tissue. Is everyone getting that? Thumbs up from Chris, good stuff. Thumbs up from the Badger household. Awesome, good stuff. And you can bring the knee up and then drop it out to the side as one way of mobilizing this. And then the other way is just thinking of shifting your hips from left to right. And we're just going to go for 2 minutes on this side and then 2 minutes on the other. If you find that you've kind of worked through one bit, you can move the ball up your back a tiny bit or just shift your hips a little bit closer to the surface you got your feet on. So some of the stuff we're going to work on today is going to be thinking about the back in a sort of forwards and backwards motion in the way that you usually think of it bending, and how a lot of the time we try and attack the low back. If we do something like we're doing a hamstring stretch, low back stretch, or if we're just relaxing it like a child's pose, and that's what we think of as like a forwards backwards. But we're then going to look at some stuff that's about the twist and the rotation to try and help with that, because there's a lot more going on there in terms of low back pain or aches and just general fatigue. If you find a spot when you're doing this that feels particularly rough as you move the hips across the side, take a couple of nice big deep belly breaths to try and relax that. And see if you can just drop the hips over a little bit further and push into that area. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take that ball out. We're going to swap across to the other side. So if you've done your left, you're going to move on to the right or vice versa. And again, just find the bit where your pelvis ends and it starts to get into the muscle of the actual back, just to the side of your spine. Once you found that spot, we're just going to camp out here for 2 minutes and just think about dropping that leg out to the side and then back up. And then out to the side and back up. And then just thinking of dropping the hips. So dropping both knees across and back to increase the pressure as you go through there. And again, just move the hips down the room a little bit to try and get that ball to slide up the back a tiny wee bit. See if you find any tighter spots there once you've spent some time in one area. Again, big breath in, and then as you breathe out, just let the hips sink across a little further. Big breath in, and then as you breathe out a little bit further, and just increase the pressure as you drop both knees across, or think about rolling onto the side of the hip a little. And there's kind of no wrong answer here if you're doing this at home on your own. Just thinking about moving through all the tissue of the low back there. Find bits that feel either like they're resistant, bits that you feel like, oh, that feels a little bit, and just kind of get a bit of pressure in there and spend some time. This is quite a nice one for just kind of chilling on the floor and hunting out those sort of tight corners of the low back, and just, or if you've done like a hefty deadlift workout, just to try and sort of like massage that muscle and help restore the tissue. Okay, we're going to hop up from there. We're going to do something we would call a pelvis reset. A lot of low back pain originates in the pelvis, so we're going to try and look at how we can sort of reset the pelvis, but really just try and put it into a good place. Sometimes you find if you've got like everyone's kind of a little bit asymmetric, so your left hamstring might be pulling your pelvis down more on one side, and you may find that results in back pain when you then load yourself or you're doing repetitive things like skiing, that kind of stuff. What we're going to need for this is a fairly thick cushion doubled over that's going to stand in for a med ball. Okay, so we're going to need that to our side. Okay, so I'm just going to run through one round of this, and then we're going to do some rounds of it together. So what we're effectively going to do is, if I'm laying on my back and I've got my knees tucked up, sort of with my upper legs at 90 degrees to my body, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the heel of my palm into my right knee, and then I'm going to cup my hand around my left knee. From there, I'm going to push with my legs against my hands. So with my left knee, I'm pushing away. With my right knee, I'm pulling towards me. I'm going to hold for 5 seconds, and then I'm going to swap for 5 seconds. I'm going to go back and forth, pushing against that with my legs, using my knees to push against my hands, and then resisting with my hands for 5 sets. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop the cushion between my knees, and I'm going to squeeze as hard as I can to try and crush that cushion. And you may hear like a little pop and some other sort of stuff going on in the pelvis after either one rotation of that or a couple. That's fine. That's just your pelvis kind of quite often realigning, and we're just trying to use the musculature around the hip to try and. So we're going to go for, starting off, again, cup the hand around one knee and push your palm against the other. And you're just going to go for 5 nice controlled breaths, pushing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release, and then swap the other way. So what the other hand is cupping around the knee, and the other one is pushing against. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to swap back again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then swap again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll swap over again for 5, and just your knees should be staying in the same place, but they're really pushing against your hands, and your hands are resisting them moving. 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to grab the cushion, pop it between the legs, And then we're just going to try and squeeze that cushion. And then relax. I'm just going to go through one more time. Bringing the knees up, and then we're just going to push against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and relax. And then again, swapped around. 2, 3, 4, 5, and trying to pull one knee towards you and push the other away from you. 2, 3, 4, 5, and swap around again. Really push. It should be hard to stop your knees from wanting to, one leg wanting to extend and the other trying to come towards you. And then swap again. Okay, and then grab cushion. And squeeze. 2, 3, 4, 5. And all we're really trying to do there is just trying to level off the pelvis, make sure it's sitting nice and right, both from this angle, so forward and back. And then from this angle, we just want to make sure that we're not kind of lopsided. We're just trying to even that off. Okay, it's quite nice. And it's something, if you get physio at all, it's something they'll quite often do is look at, if they lie you down on the bed and they're looking at your feet, and there at your feet, and they're basically looking to see which leg is a little bit longer. If one leg's a little bit longer, it's not because that leg has grown, it's more because your pelvis is more than likely sitting a little bit like that or slightly tipped, and it'll extend one leg. And that's where, on more repetitive movements, or if you're loading yourself, that sort of thing starts to just jam up the back, because that's the victim in all of it if your hips are not quite there. So a good one to do every now and again, and you'll definitely come across that in physio if you're ever sort of getting some stuff sorted out with your back. All right, we're going to go for a spinal twist this time. So for this, we're going to think about gluing the backs of our shoulders to the ground. So we're going to get down onto the ground, and we're going to glue our shoulders to the floor, and then we're going to just drop our knees across to the right without letting our shoulders lift, and just keep dropping without letting that shoulder lift. And then extend your left arm out to the side, look to that side, and then using your right hand, drive or pull your left knee towards the ground. And we're just going to keep those shoulders on the ground and keep pulling this left knee down towards the ground. Okay, everyone into that position? Yeah, it looks good. And you're kind of using a little bit of gravity, but also once you have dropped them as far as they will go, you're then just looking to extend that left arm, look over towards that left arm, keeping the shoulders on the ground, and pull with your right hand, pull your left knee towards the ground. You may get a little pop here and there. Take a nice big breath in, fill up your whole torso, and then as you breathe out, pull more on that knee down towards the ground. Nice big breath in again. Keep pulling that knee down towards the ground. And you can kind of wrap your hand around your hamstring once your knee is getting closer and closer to that ground. Nice big breath in. And as you breathe out, pulling that leg further across, trying to keep that left shoulder glued to the ground. Nice big breath in. And by now, my knee is completely on the floor, but my left shoulder is still on the ground. And that's just showing you how much of a twist you've kind of put into the spine there. And if you roll back up there, it should feel pretty damn nice after that. We're going to go down, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to be really focusing on keeping our right shoulder down towards the ground. And then we're going to drop our knees across to the left-hand side. So we're going to lie back, just shoulders both on the ground, feet on the floor, and then dropping our legs across, trying to keep that shoulder on the ground. And then from there, once they've gone as far as they will go, we're going to extend our right arm out to the side, keeping that shoulder on the ground. And then we're going to let those legs fall a little bit more. We're going to use our left hand to grab onto that knee and start to pull down towards the ground with our left hand on right knee, pulling it towards the ground. And then again, we're just going to take a nice big breath in and fill your whole chest and belly up with air. And then as you breathe out, sinking that a little bit further, pulling that knee down and across towards the floor. And every time you take that nice big breath in and breathe out, just let your right knee sink closer and closer to the ground. If you need to, you can start to grab more around the hamstring of the leg to get a bit more leverage, and just keep going through this twist. Focusing on keeping that right shoulder on the ground. And go for 2 more breaths. And then just slowly come back and come back up to sit. Oh, bloody love that one. All right. Feels good. It's not something your spine does very often. We spend a lot of time just doing this sort of like forwards, backwards thing with our back, but actually it can do a lot more. And it does feel really good when you just let it do that, because I always find it amazing when you start that stretch and your knees kind of go over a tiny bit. And then as you keep breathing in and out, it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. You don't think you can twist anymore. It's a good one. All right. We're going to move on to a QL twist. Okay. The QL, for those of you who aren't sure on that muscle, is one which travels from our quads all the way up into our spine. So it's a really important muscle, and it's one of the ones that can get quite tight and can quite often cause issues with the back. So we're going to try and get into a little twist for this. So we're going to start off with cross legs. We're going to take our right foot over our left knee in a cross leg position. Okay, so I'm going to try and get my right foot over that left knee into this position here. Even us tight people can get into this position a little bit, as long as we kind of give ourselves some slack and don't expect both knees to touch the floor. Okay, from here, what I'm going to try and do is keep my chest nice and upright. I'm not going to twist. And then from there, I'm going to bring my left hand up and over. I'm going to try and drop down in there. So I'm going to try and get a lean on. I'm trying to keep my torso completely straight. To imagine on like sort of like chest to a wall. I'm just trying to keep straight onto that. And then we're just going to lean over in this. Again, we're going to take nice big breaths. And coming over, nice big breaths. And coming over. I'm going to do 2 more breaths because this is not the comfiest one. I'm going to come up, undo the legs, stretch them out in front of you, give them a little shake off. And then for this one, we're going to bring our left foot up and over onto our right knee. And then our right arm is going to be the one which comes up and over. Oh. So trying to get both of your sit bones on the ground if you can. And then our right arm is going to come up and over. Nice big breath in and out. And 2 more breaths. And then back up. And then shake legs off. All right, and then we are going to just go for 1 more on each side. We're not going to do big holds on that one just because it doesn't feel that nice to be in, especially being cross-legged. So we're going to go back to the original side. We're going to take our right foot over our left knee. And then our left arm is going to go up, right up to the sky, and then over to the side. We do 5 breaths. And back down, shake legs off. And then we are going to go left foot over right knee. Feels a bit like a puzzle, this does. So left foot over right knee, and then right arm up and over. And again, 5 breaths here. Back to center, and then shake legs off. All right. So we're going to finish up looking at some stuff on the upper back or mid to upper back. And what we're going to look at is where our scapula, the bottom of it. So if we're kind of thinking about our shoulder blade, where that ends on our back, we're going to go just to the bottom of that and to the side of our spine. So if we imagine we've got our spine there, and then you've got your scapula here, we're just going to come to this spot right underneath. Okay. So it'll take a little bit of hunting around, but if you think of, you go to the spine and then go to a little to the side, and it probably is where you can get your hand to behind your back. Okay. So I'm going to get straight up back into that same position I was up here because that's kind of useful to get into. I'm going to pop the ball into that spot there. And if you want to, you can kind of like move your arm up and around and you'll find where the bottom of the scapula is because it'll start to get interrupted by the ball. If you take your hand overhead, you'll feel the scapula start to hit into the ball. Okay, we're going to leave our left. So if we put the ball into our left, sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. If you pop the ball into the left of our spine, okay, we're then going to take our left hand and pop it in behind our back. So if we roll onto our right hip, it gets easier to do that. And then from there, we're going to roll back across towards the left. And this may feel a bit knotty and a bit rank, but we're just going to roll across back to our left and then across to the right and then back to the left and then back to the right. And you're kind of trapping your hand underneath your back. If you can wiggle it down under further, go for it. And what we're doing is we're just rolling across the fibers that fringe the scapula and our lower ribs. And this is to help our scapula be able to move better when we're trying to go into overhead positions or when we're trying to retract the shoulders in any of the Olympic lifts or any of the pulling movements. And just tick-tocking your hips from left to right with the hand trapped behind the back and the ball in on the same side. We're just going to do 2 minutes aside on this one. And you should feel that ball kind of moving across some of the musculature behind your lower ribs. And hopefully feel it easing off a little bit compared with how it felt when you first started. Now I've trapped my timer underneath my lower back on my hand, so I know 2 minutes is up. So we'll just do a few more. All right, so we're going to take the ball out. We're going to then pop it under the same spot on our right-hand side. So I'm going to roll over onto my left hip, pop that ball into a similar spot. And if you think of using your hand overhead as a test to find where the bottom of the scapula is, because it'll start to get interrupted by the ball. Once you found that spot, we're going to then roll over onto the left hip, put the right hand behind our back, like someone's bullying us. And then we're going to roll back across onto the right-hand side of the hip, starting to add pressure onto that ball. And then we're just going to take the weight from the left hip across onto the right. And we're just going to nestle that hand behind our low back, try and thread it through under your low back as much as you can, and just roll back and forth. You can also try really inflating your chest against the ball. So when you've just got both hips, both sides of the hips sitting on the ground and you've got fairly even pressure, you can just try and think about big, nice breath into the chest. And that'll increase the pressure on the ball, and then and relax. And just take some big, solid breaths there and try and push air against the ball. And you're going to try and trap the muscle between your expanding lungs and the ball. Roll right across onto your right hip. You'll feel the ball moving into a slightly different area, and you're just attacking the muscles from a slightly different angle as you roll from your left to your right-hand side. All right, guys, 2 minutes on that side. And roll back around.
Oh.
And just roll the shoulders off and go through like a pretend strict press. And just ease those off. And hopefully feel like the low back and mid back are just feeling a little bit nicer after that. Good job, guys. Awesome. And feel free to go through any of those, like, you know, if you find that they're particularly useful or you find they're really hard to get into, they're probably good ones to look at. For me, for instance, like getting into that cross-legged position and getting into that QL stretch was really quite nasty. And there's a couple other ways we can do QL stretches, so we'll have a look at those another time. But yeah, awesome work, guys, and have a great evening.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for coming along.
Rory. Thanks very much. Cheers.
No worries, guys.
Thank you very much.
Catch you later.
Rory.
Bye.
Bye-bye.